Okay, so we are going to look at, okay, colors changed. We're going to look at what the VO2 test is all about. VO2 stands for volume of oxygen. And what that basically means is how much oxygen is your body able to consume. Now, one quick question. What is the difference between a car which has got a 800cc engine versus a car which has got a 2000cc engine? Okay? The bigger the engine, the more fuel the car can burn and produce a greater performance. The other way to say it is, the bigger the car engine, the more fuel it is able to burn using more oxygen to produce performance. Now in the human body, I can't really go into every single muscle, do a biopsy, figure out what fuel is being used and at what intensity. But I can definitely measure the oxygen going in and out. So if 3 units of oxygen goes in and 2 units comes out, that means the rest has been used by the body. And the bigger the size of your engine, the more oxygen it can use. Easy? Simple? All right. So how do you measure this? Now, there are many ways in which you can do this. A lot of wearables nowadays, Garmin watches, they sort of tell you what your VO2 is. And it is for this reason VO2 is considered gold standard as well for fitness because, in order to have a very high oxygen uptake, your entire system from your lungs to your heart to your blood vessels to your muscles have to be really, really good in order to get that oxygen in. So if you have a very high VO2, you're fit. So that's the gold standard. So can we go to the previous slide, please? Yeah. So what happens is Garmin and other such watches, they know your height, weight, sex, heart rate, speed of running, and they are able to calculate what your VO2 is. So in sports, you usually train between 6 to 8,000 feet for improvements, for physiological changes that you want to happen because of high altitude training. Now, as the altitude goes up, the concentration of oxygen in air comes down, oxygen being a heavy gas. So you now are left with a situation where your body demands oxygen, but there is less of it available. So your body starts compensating. It increases the number of red blood cells. It makes sure that your breathing is slower and deeper. So every single breath you're taking deeper breaths and your blood has more red blood cells in it. So that whatever little oxygen is there in the air, it can be carried by blood to your working muscles. So that is the idea behind high altitude training. So sports where you require a very, very good aerobic capacity, very good oxygen carrying capacity of blood, cycling, endurance running, those seem to benefit by doing altitude training. Next, please. Unfortunately, what happens is your body's adaptation is highly specific. So, for example, it was 1968 Mexico Olympics where everybody had a sudden realization how big a difference altitude can make. The Mexico City Games were held at a significant altitude, and everyone who trained at sea level and competed at altitude found the going a little hard. But everyone who trained at high altitude were able to compete really well. But the flip side is, if you train at high altitude and you compete at sea level, it doesn't seem to give you a big advantage. So high altitude training is extremely specific. I'm not really sure why our weightlifting team does high altitude training. That is still beyond my capacity to understand, but that does happen, right? Not the cycling team, the weightlifting team trains at high altitude. So the altitude that you need to achieve to train, to get all these benefits is between 4,000 and 6,000 feet above sea level, right? Above 10,000 is considered high altitude for most activities, but you don't want that high an altitude. You still want to perform and train at a good level. Duration matters. So for example, this image is of a high altitude chamber. Okay, you have a chamber where the pressure can be controlled, and you can put in treadmills, you can put in weight training.